Good evening, everybody. They say never ever start off any kind of session with an apology, but I'm going to have to because we have Piet all the way from Eldoret. We've got him, we can see him, we can wave at him, but we can't hear him. We cannot hear a word from Piet. And when we did a dress rehearsal, hello?
Yes,
Piet?
hello.
Oh, it's working.
Oh, okay.
It's
Good.
What a great way to start, because at least you get the adrenaline going. We had a dress rehearsal an hour ago, perfectly, and suddenly we got Piet. Piet, you're not in Eldoret, you're in close to Eldoret.
Kaptagat.
Kaptagat, yeah, okay. Fantastic, it's working. Don't know what we did. What I normally do when that doesn't work is I just hit the side of the thing as hard as I can if it works. So, yeah, after more adrenaline than when you hear Chariots of Fire just before the start of Comrades.
It is.
I'm going to start off by saying thank you so much. Yeah, for a great to be present. It's fantastic to have you here. You and I met and had a great time at the Fordyce party at Comrades, and I learned what a great bloke you are. But can you tell us more about yourself? Because I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going to go back to 2023, 2 down runs ago. No one had heard of you. I mean, no one had heard of you, Piet, except for, I knew that you got a 3rd place in the World 100K Champs, but and I was commentating on the race, which is a great honor and privilege. But there you were. You suddenly, this figure was just there, dominant, fighting for position, for a top 3 position, and what an incredible race that was. But can you just give us a little bit of background into Piet Wiersma? I mean, people didn't even know how to pronounce your name, Piet. They were saying Piet Wiersma. Yes, would you remember that? And so just give us a little bit of background on your early childhood and that sort of thing. We can take it from there.
Sure. Yeah, I started track and field back when I was 5 in the Netherlands. But all the disciplines basically. And at some point I found out, that I was terrible at everything because I was, small and thin and kind of weak as well. But the only thing I could do was running basically. Like I could do some high jump, but I wasn't tall enough. So at some point I just started specializing this. I think around the time that I was 11, I started doing specific running workouts as well with another coach. And then when I was 15, I started taking things a little bit more seriously by combining school and sports, and in a team of regional talents, let's say. And that coach is still someone who I'm quite often in contact with and such, and it was inspired me a lot. And yeah, I started doing this for a couple of years. From 2012 onward, but in the end, around 2019, it was like I'd been trying for 7 years, and I just found like I didn't have the talent of some of the guys that were running at the top national level, and my goal was even beyond that, like to run on the international stage, to run Olympics, these kinds of things, and at some point in a race, it just broke, like the realization hit me, and I was like, I need to change, and I need to change something. So after that race, which was a track race, I think 3,000 steeple, I talked to my coach. I was saying, like in the car ride back, I was saying like this isn't working. I need to make a change, and like the most logical option at that time would have been to switch maybe to half marathon and marathon, because I was running 5 and 10K maximum basically. But I decided I wanted something bigger. I always realized, like my talent is on the long distances. Like as longer it gets, the better I get. I was good at, like taking all the kilometers, like in training. I was able to do that while recovering quite fast and without too many issues. So I decided to run basically a trail race, the next race or the next week of 60 kilometers, and I won that. And then a month later, I did the same thing in the German Alps with 0 mountain preparation. But I managed to win that race as well, though it was at the time by far the toughest race of my life. And then yeah.
How long ago? 20 what?
This was 2019. So yeah, about 6
Okay.
years. And then 1 month after, I ran my first 100K, which at the time, like I wasn't that well prepared. 100Ks, especially road ultras, are quite a different beast from trails. Like trails, you can do with, I feel like, with a good basis, and like coming from the track. Even a week after a steeplechase race or 5K race, like I was able to run 60 over trail and do quite well, simply because it felt like an easy long run, basically. But on the road, it's different. Like you really need the preparation, you need the training. Otherwise, it's just very, very painful. And at some point, your body just starts breaking down because of all the beating it takes. So it wasn't that easy, but I got like third nationally, which it was also the national championships in my birth town, actually.
Okay.
And then afterwards, it was like this was the end of summer. This was September 2019. I was about to go to Russia for half a year to finish my studies, basically in international relations. So I went there. Then after I came back, it was early 2020. COVID broke out, and I wasn't able to continue doing races the way I wanted to. So in the end, it took me like about 2 years to get, almost exactly 2 years to get back to racing again. So in 2020, I moved to Italy, to Turin, where I just moved out, actually, to start my master's degree. And there I just started running in the mountains for the first time, which was great. And I had ambitions to run trails, actually, and never even to run on the road, or at least, like the trails appealed to me by far the most. But then at some point in 2021, I wanted to start doing races, and I couldn't get a medical certificate for the trail races. So I decided to fly back to the Netherlands to go and do the same race, like in my birth town again, 100K. And this time I got first place nationally, third in the international race. And it was just a lot more than I expected, because I hadn't really prepared for any road racing. I was somewhat in shape, but I wasn't training very disciplined, and it did give me the idea like I can do something more. And also because I ran like I think 6:49 over 100K in that race, I also qualified for the World Championships the year after in Berlin, and I got third there a year later, and that's kind of how I ended up doing Comrades, because a friend of mine, Guillaume Ruel from France, he's a big talent on the ultra. He's same age as me, and he was a big favorite for that race, but he just started too fast, and in the end he got like fifth. Whereas by contrast, I was actually very badly prepared, because I was dealing with injuries for 2 months already. Like 2 months before the race, I'd gotten like a serious Achilles injury, which I had to keep running with. Then a month before the race, I got a stress fracture in my calf, and I wasn't doing any crossover training at the time. I wasn't doing any cycling or whatever. So the only thing I could do was just run, and but less than 100 kilometers a week in preparation for the 100K World Championship. So that wasn't very impressive in terms of training. But in the end, like I think I just pushed myself through it mentally, because that year was also, I think, psychologically probably the worst year of my life. I was dealing with a lot of things at the same time, and also uncertainty about the future and such, also in a personal sense. And I think I kind of used that psychological hole that I was in to just push me deeper, and like when it was hurting, just to kind of, it was my only outlet, basically. And yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, can I interrupt you there? So that's when I noticed your name, but only very vaguely, keeping tabs on the World 100K champs. Okay, there's a guy from the Netherlands who's come third, but then you obviously you kind of don't look too closely at what was happening to you. How did Comrades into your world? I mean, you mentioned, was it the French runner who
yeah, it was Guillaume who suggested it to me, actually.
Who was? Sorry?
Guillaume. So he got fifth in that race in the end. And afterwards, we got talking. We also became friends after that race. And he, like I was asking him about, like what's up next for you, like because I didn't have a coach. I was training myself. I didn't really know anything about ultra races or the world of ultra. So yeah, I just came there with very little knowledge about, like even my competitors and whatever. So I, I wanted some inspiration for new races from him, and he was saying, like, yeah, I'm thinking of doing Comrades next year. And at the same time, it was also the thing, like I got to that World Championships with very little preparation. In the end, I ran podium, so I also realized, like I need to prepare for something bigger, because it can be a lot more if I train consistently, if I don't get injuries, if I run, like weeks of, let's say, more than 140 kilometers instead of less than 100. And so that's kind of how I got thinking about Comrades, because he suggested it to me.
Oh, okay, that's fantastic. And then, correct me if I'm wrong, but I did my research. I spoke to Nick Bester before I chatted to you this evening, and he said you wrote him a letter in which you said that you knew you could win Comrades and that he must support you in the Nedbank running team. And he said the way you wrote it, and yes, you've got a CV. You've won the Netherlands champs. You've got a third place in the world champs. But the way you wrote it, he said, this guy, I have to sign up for my running club. So he said, but at a very early point, he realized you were serious. And, we get lots of runners who come to us and say, I know I can win Comrades. And you look at them and say, well, they dream that they could win Comrades. But he said it was the way you wrote it that made him realize, no, this is a future champion, and I want you there. So you became a part of the team. But still, Pete, you just burst onto the scene. I'm trying to think. I don't think there is a runner who has arrived like that and nearly won it. What was it? The 2023? That was the 5 seconds, 3 seconds. I get this year was 3 seconds.
Yeah, this year was five, and that time was 3.
I need to point out to you that amazingly enough, you're only just on the podium for the closest finishes of all time, because the second closest finish of all time is 1931, and that's Noel Bury against Phil Masterton Smith, 2 seconds. They're close, and then there's on the ladies' side, there's Ray Bischoff, who won in 1998 by 19 seconds. But the closest, of course, is the very famous Tommy Malone, Mani Kun. So you're there, but to arrive from almost nowhere and just 5 seconds away from winning is just absolutely. I'm trying to think who has done that, and I cannot think of an example. Alberto Salazar in 1994 won his first Comrades, but he didn't burst on the scene. He was a Boston Marathon winner. He was a New York Marathon champion. He had a massive CV, and you had a very thin CV, and you came along and shocked us. I mean, I remember being totally stunned by that, and what an amazing race. You appeared in that race never to be overawed. There wasn't anybody in 2023 that you were in awe of or frightened of. Is that true? You really believed you could win?
Yeah, I did. Like in the season, I wouldn't say my preparation was perfect. Far from it. And at the time, I was still training in Turin, in Italy as well, and where I did basically my entire preparation. And I was not running more than 140 kilometers a week, simply because my body couldn't handle it and was just not ready. I was doing a lot on tarmac and such, and also because initially I was actually preparing for a 100K world record attempt, which took place 4 weeks before Comrades in Vilnius, together with Alexander Sorokin, who has had the same coach at the time, because after the World Championships, I got talking with my coach back then, who was also Guillaume's coach, and also Alexander's coach. And so that's also how I got into the world record attempt in the first place. But the attempt itself was quite tough. I was actually in the lead of the race until 72 kilometers. But the course was very tough, because it was like one mile over street block that we had to repeat all the time, and it had like 4 90-degree corners. This wasn't easy to do over 100 kilometers, and still, like, at least it was flat, so I managed until 72. but I started getting issues with some cramps, and at 72 kilometers, it was like, yeah, I think if I push through, I might actually be able to get the world record. But we were going for sub 6, and I think it was still somewhat on schedule for that time, but I knew we couldn't make that because it just wasn't possible on that course. So I decided to get out of the race because I knew 4 weeks later was Comrades. And that was also, of course, the mistake going into the race, because you cannot have two main goals in your season so close together. Before that, also been talking to Nick, of course, who definitely did not recommend it, doing something like that. But in the end, it worked out for me because 72 kilometers was kind of the perfect tempo run, like at 3:35 per kilometer. So that was a sub 6 pace over the 100K, but also the exact pace that Tete and I eventually ran in Comrades. But the only issue was that I hadn't had any mountain preparation. Like all of my training had been flat until that point. So basically, in the last 4 weeks, I think I took 1 week to recover from the 72 kilometers, just easy runs, and then I started doing some kind of crazy workouts in the hills in Turin, and I think that's kind of what prepared my legs for Comrades, and doing those workouts, like how seeing how good my body was taking it, basically without any hill work until the time, like. I knew, like, yeah, I should be able to do this because, like uphill I was strong, but downhill it was amazing. Like the times that I was running, like I remember that the descent I think was exactly 5 kilometers over tarmac. And that was kind of the focus of my race because I was preparing for the down run, and that was the only thing I knew about Comrades and nothing else. But that it was a down run. So I ran those, and I did those. I think I did it hill about 3 times in one training, and then like extended some kilometers to finish doing 40 kilometers. But on those downhills, at some point I ran like a 5 kilometer in 13 minutes and 10 seconds or something like this. Like crazy. But of course, because it was downhill, but like the beating my legs took, it was like I felt it was like like perfect preparation for Comrades, because after 3 of those, it's like you've run a Comrades almost, and how well my body was taking that, and like knowing how well I was taking that pace during that world record attempt, I knew, like, yeah, I can do this.
It seems to me, Piet, that you've taken the sort of the rule book that we old guys wrote, and you've torn it up and thrown it away because you do everything. I agree with Nick Bester being cross with you doing 100, trying to do 100K, and then a few weeks later, Comrades. I mean, that I'll come back to that. So that one you just lost, but the following year up run, you won, and again, it was a joy and a pleasure to commentate on that race. We have the best seats in the whole house, I always say, in the commentary box, because we've got 8 television cameras that we look at, so we can watch the whole race unfold. And to watch that race was fantastic, and especially to be a commentator who said Piet's going to win it. Piet's going to win it on poly shorts, and you did. So that made me look very, very, very knowledgeable and experienced. But you went up polys like a rocket. So, yeah, it was that was a convincing win. And old Tommy Malone, who used to always be the chairman of the Winners Club, if he was here with me now, he'd say, "Welcome to the Winners Club, Piet. Thoroughly deserved, fantastic win." But in that time, was that when you made the move to Kenya?
Yeah, I mean, my permanent move was I made after Comrades, because I actually came to Kenya for the first time, and it's maybe a long story, but I kind of have to explain for context, I think. Like back in 2018, because I had taken half a year off from my studies at that time, because I wanted to go to Russia for my semester abroad, but I was too late with the application, so I did the semester a year later, actually, when I was there in Kenya. So instead of like doing my studies, I applied for a volunteering spot in Kenya. But I specifically wanted to go to like one of the places where professional runners train, to not only be volunteering, but also to be able to at least have that experience for the first time in my life, and not knowing what could come out of it. So I applied. I got a volunteer position for 12 weeks. That was the maximum. then I flew off to Kenya, and because I specifically requested to be put in that place, which was in Ngong, which is a place near Nairobi, but it's kind of on the east side of the Rift Valley. There's a lot of professional runners there as well. And because I, like specifically requested to be put there, I was also the only volunteer there, so I was there alone, basically at 20 years old, and no context whatsoever. So that was kind of the full cultural experience. And I was volunteering in an orphanage, in a children's home that eventually I remained in contact with, and I actually met them again for the first time in almost 7 years or 6 years, like last year when I came back to Kenya, because I had been in Italy, and I had during that time I didn't have any money or time to go that far abroad, despite really wanting to go back. And also ever since I went there, I think that it has always been one of my biggest motivations in any run that I've done. Knowing that if I succeed, then I'll be able to help them out as well, in case it's necessary. And so in 2024, I just graduated at the end of 2023. I was still on Turin. I was training there. I was basically doing what I had been doing the year before. But at some point, I just realized, I was feeling uninspired. I felt like, I'm playing it really safe right now. I'm trying to do exactly what I did last year, because it got me position 2 in Comrades by 3 seconds. So if I do that plus a little bit more, then I should be able to win it. But then I realized by myself, it doesn't work like that. Every year you have to go there and give your all, and give the best version of yourself, I feel like. And I felt like, no, I have to take a chance here, like maybe a bit of a risk, but something that can also pay off hugely. So then I started thinking about going to Kenya. My first initial idea was going back to Ngong, but I still had a contact there from 5 years before, who I was training with at the time. Hadn't talked to him in 4 years, I think. But I texted him. He called me back, and he said, I moved to Kattegat, and you can stay in my house. And in the end, that's what I did. Basically, almost not knowing this guy, but feeling like, okay, this can also work out. So I went there, and I stayed in his house, which was a single room, small, and taking cold water, bucket showers and things like this, no running water. But so basically the basic Kenyan experience. But being there for the 6 weeks, I was feeling so at peace. I think just focusing on running in that simple life. Kind of being a bit separated from the world, or at least if I needed it, because there are a lot of things going on in the world right now, of course, and sometimes it gets me personally, and I feel like when I'm here in Kenya, just focusing on myself, on training, and living that simple life. Like when I need it, I'm also able to separate myself from that. And just that experience was great. And then I also decided during that period, like if I win Comrades this year, then I'm gonna come back here and train full time. And that's what happened. And also after I won, Nick Bessie offered me a contract. And so since January this year, I've also been getting a salary on the Nedbank running cloud, and Nike, and it's been quite an experience, because it was indeed after winning Comrades 2024 that I came there.
Pete, but so I read. We seem to have lost Pete. Can you still hear us, Pete? But
yeah, I can hear.
Pete, so I read a really rather revealing piece that you wrote about, and going quite deeply into your soul about leaving Turin and now going to Kenya. Is this now a permanent move for you? Are you at home now, so to speak?
I mean, it was kind of that last year. I feel like I said, I had decided before Comrades 2024 that if I won, I was gonna come back here to live, basically permanently, and I did that. But during that, so over the last year, I think I've been about 10 out of 12 months here in Kenya, mostly in Kaptagat, a couple of days in Ngong with the kids, but mostly here. And so yeah, this has been basically my life since then. But it was mostly like last week. It kind of hit doubly so because I still had my room in Kenya. I was subletting it for a while. Then I came back this summer. Spent my summer there, like with my friends and things like this. But then I left the room permanently. So right now this is basically my only place, the one that I'm renting here in Kaptagat. And so now it's really it feels definitive.
Okay,
yes.
One of our great friends who you met at the after party, Joe, asked me to ask you this question. Tell us, what is a typical day, a day where you are now in the life of Piet Wiersma? Put it, your trainer. How does a 12-hour day go? You wake up and what do you? How? Tell us about your training and what do you do?
Yeah, sure. So most days I wake up somewhere between 5 and 6. It's about normal time. And most days we run at 6 o'clock sharp. Usually with like one or two other guys, or sometimes a couple more. We would do like for instance an easy long run on Monday, like here throughout the hills, maybe 20 kilometers, sometimes slightly longer, sometimes slightly shorter. Then in the evening or like afternoon around 3, when it's the hottest, we usually go for like a recovery jog of about 10 kilometers. And then on Tuesday, like Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday, I mean, kind of my core workouts during the week. So on Tuesday, usually we go to the track with the group that I've joined right now. On Thursday, we do a long run, but long run like as in a tempo run. So it's really fast. And usually we start like a little bit easier, and then we move progressively up in speed. And this is usually either 30 kilometers or 40 kilometers. And if it's 40 kilometers, we're also supported by the coach who's in the car and giving us drinks when we need it. And then on Saturday we'll do a fartlek training on the road. And for these runs, usually we have to work. I have to wake up a little bit earlier, especially the long run, because usually we start 5:30 maybe, and sometimes even 5 if the coach is there. And if the coach is not there, we start at 6 because that's when the sun goes up, and you cannot really do anything as long as there's no light. And that's mostly like kind of the routine during the weekend training.
And then your meals, I mean, what do they consist of, and who prepares those?
Yeah, so I mean, mostly me and my friends here. We just prepare our own food. We cook on a small stove, basically. So quite basic. I always have breakfast after my morning run, so not before. The morning run is also always the main workout of the day. But at some point you just get used to doing those on an empty stomach, and I feel like I perform better that way. Also, when I'm around comrades, my stomach is. I usually don't really have anything of a breakfast. It's mostly just the energy drinks and the gels that I'm taking. Yeah. No, exactly.
I never had it.
No, but
run on an empty stomach.
No, exactly. I've read about it. Yes. Sorry, there's a little bit of a delay, so I'm gonna continue talking. But yeah, so breakfast usually consists out of either we eat bread and KNT, which is like basically half milk, half water, and a whole lot of sugar, and sometimes I make pancakes instead. Then for lunch, usually eat something like rice with potatoes or something like this, or rice with beans. Quite simple. And then for dinner, it's like I think 9 out of 10 times it's ugali with some kind of green vegetable, like spinach like vegetables that we get here locally, and that's kind of the diet. Yeah.
So not a lot of meat.
No, but also before coming here, I was like living in Italy. I was already kind of vegetarian because I would never buy meat. I would never cook it for myself. It's only I'm kind of flexible because when I'm a guest somewhere, like I still eat it because it's more about the boycott than anything else. And also sometimes when I go to South Africa, you kind of have to because the diet is very much based on meat. But yeah,
Hard-boiled.
most of the time we don't eat it here, but it's not necessarily a specific choice that we want to eat vegetarian, but mostly because most of the guys here are really poor and just don't have money for those things.
I think it'd be quite hard to go to Nick Bester's house and not have meat, because you stay at his place for about 3 weeks before Comrades. Is that correct?
Yeah, before my second Comrades last year in 2024, I was staying at his house for 2 weeks approximately. So 16 days before the race, I came down from altitude to Pretoria, which is kind of like medium altitude. And there, like I did my last big run, and then also started tapering slowly, and while living at Nick's house, and but most of the time I was cooking my own food.
Okay. And I mean, entertainment or anything like that. I mean, do you read? Do you have? I'm assuming there's no television, or what you go. I don't know, what do the Kenyans do apart from running, but you go and watch soccer, football? I mean, I don't know, what else would you do, or is it just a very simple life that you training and resting and recovering?
Yeah, I mean, it is mostly very simple. Like I think my main leisure activity is reading a book, or like studying Swahili or whatever, or writing, like which I also like to do occasionally. Yeah, and like sometimes the athletes in the camps, they tend to have a TV, so they also watch the soccer games, and I tend to be into that as well. But out here, I have my own room. Like I'm right now. Last year, I actually moved, so I have my own place now, which I rent for very, very little money every month. And yeah, I don't have any of those things. I just have my bed and my stove and my pans, and that's mostly it.
Okay, and then your plans now for the future, Pete. I mean, obviously Comrades next year, but before that, have you got any, ultras or marathons or anything that you've got in the pipeline that you're looking at, or is it just going to be for Comrades?
Yeah, so I think in November I will kind of do like an intermediate race. I think my next peaking moment will be marathon around next winter, like European winter, so about January, February. Uh, might be the Sevilla Marathon if I can get in there as an elite.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the next main goal. So because also right now it kind of gives me 5 months of build up towards that, which is ideal. But in between, it would be good to do some races. Like I'm set to run a marathon in South Africa around the end of November, which I won't do, like all out probably, because it's not my main goal. But before that, I might also do maybe one race in the Netherlands, like anywhere between 10K and half marathon. I think just also to test the speed and see how it's going. Am I still there?
Pete, what is your marathon PB? Sorry, you broke up there. What is your marathon PB at the moment, Pete?
Yeah, so it's basically the time from still from my debut which I ran in Sevilla in 2023, which was 2:18:59, I think.
2:23.
Yes.
You're much faster than that. I can tell you that. I can tell you that right now. I'll give you that advice for free. You are much faster than 2:23. So I expect that to go when you run in Spain. Have you at all been tempted, as so many runners are, by other great ultra, the Two Oceans? You're not tempted by that race at all?
I mean, there's always a temptation, and then you talk to Nick Bester, and he tells you, like if you're gonna do this, you're definitely not gonna win Comrades.
And Nick is right. If you go back, I'm not counting Gerda Steyn and Frith van der Merwe, the ladies who are in a class of their own. But if you go to the men's champions, the only male champion who's won them both is Derek Price, who won 2 Oceans and Comrades in 1974 and 1975. And Derek is a wonderful guy, and in by no means belittling his achievement, but he won in far slower times. You know, he was winning Comrades in 6 hours and winning the 2 Oceans in 3.5 hours. Well, you can't do that anymore. So yeah, you're going to have to put it down as a bucket list when you've finished. And by the way, Nick let me into another secret. He believes that you are capable of winning a lot of Comrades marathons, not just 3 or 4, but a bunch of them. And I mean, it's quite a thought. Does it worry you? Does it give you a sleepless night to think that, but for a few seconds, you could have 3 Comrades wins right now? Or do you think Tete won fair? Well, he did win fair and square, but you gave everything you could give, and those 5 seconds and those 5 seconds, that's the race.
Yeah, like part of me feels like you're trying to start some rivalry here, but like, yeah, I feel like I've talked about it before. I feel like 2023 was kind of the complete opposite of 2025 in the ways I lost there, because 2023 I went in there not nearly having the preparation that I put in 2024, 2025. Especially last year, I was better prepared than ever. Like in my training, I did some of the best runs of my life for sure. Comrades included. Like during training, I had better runs than ever. And I was definitely like, I felt like I was prepared to win. Back in 2023, this wasn't the case, because I knew during the race that even running there, that Tete was probably better, and I was just trying to run technically a better race, trying to be mentally stronger, and in the end, like I ended up, like getting very, very close to him, but also realizing, like afterwards, like yeah, I came very close. Maybe there was a way to win this if I had sped up sooner or whatever, if I'd sprinted faster. But at the same time, I also knew that Tete was definitely the better athlete that year. Then last year, I came towards Comrades, at the time in the best shape of my life, but still only 6 weeks in Kenya, which had been great. So I came in there very confidently, knowing I was so much better than the year before, and then I managed to win. And Tete had his own issues, of course, so he didn't run up to this level. And I feel like this year, that was somewhat the case for me. Not to the same extent, maybe, but like I said, I think the month before Comrades, I ran like an insane 66-kilometer run here in Kenya, like at very high altitude. We were starting at 2,300 meters, then I went up to 2,750, and then just stayed there for most of the run, going up and down, up and down. And then, like going downhill for the last 15 kilometers, and I finished the 66 kilometers. I think my average was, I'm not quite sure. It's also not entirely comparable to, of course, when you're running at sea level, but it was very fast. It was a lot faster than the year before, and mostly I finished there very, very fresh. And then two days later, I was already ready to do another long run with the group, because I did the run on Tuesday, and then on Thursday it was always the long run with the group. And I was feeling so strong. And then I came to Pretoria, this time not staying with Nick, but close to where he was, so basically in the same area. And then again, same as last year, 13 days before Comrades, I did my last long run of 40 kilometers. And I ran that, I think, 3:30 on average. Most of the time, very, very easy. But then we did like 3 huge hills in between. That like you're climbing for 3 kilometers, then you go down for 3 kilometers again, and then you turn around and you do it again. And that run, like even climbing that hill, I never got. I always stayed below 4 minutes per kilometer. When I went downhill, I was running like 3:00. I think sometimes 2:50. I think even Nick told me. And I was just feeling so easy. It was like I was cheating somewhere. Like I had taken some things as easy as it was going.
Pete, you mentioned the word cheating, and you mentioned the high altitude and that. What are your feelings? As we know, Kenya at the moment is not one of the great nations in athletics for the number of athletes serving bans. It's well over 100. And
yes,
when you won in 2024, your second place runner, Dan, serving a 3-year ban. You know, I mean, what are your feelings on that? No, not for one moment am I casting any aspersions at you, because I know you as a person and you are as honest as the day is long. But I'm just, you know, does it worry you? Does it depress you? Does it make you angry? You know.
Yes, I mean, I've had those moments. Like I don't want to comment on Dan's situation because you know, like we've always had a good relationship, and you never know in a band, you know, like how something got into your system. But the thing is, like the way I see it is, as an elite athlete, you're responsible for what comes into your body, and it doesn't matter how, you know, like when you get tested and you get busted, like you get banned, and that's just the only way the system can work. So in that sense, it's what should happen, as hard as it can be for some athletes, because you work for this very hard, of course. I think what you're saying about Kenya is definitely true. It's and I've seen it in person here, that it's far too easy for a Kenyan athlete to get doping. I think there are very few sports doctors here in Kenya that are not involved actually in doping in some way, and who have not offered it to their athletes at some point. And that is an issue in itself. Then the second issue is that, you know, like the low literacy rate, and the fact that, you know, like some athletes have almost nothing. Then they go to running, you know, like with the promise of winning a lot of money in a race, and then when, you know, like a sports doctor offers them something that is gonna, you know, like raise their blood levels or something like this, they will take it. Sometimes not even mentioning that it is doping, and, you know, like that's also the issue. Like some athletes with the low education, they will not even check. They will just take what the doctor tells them to do because it will make them better. At least that's what the expert says, you know. And then the second issue, I think, is that out of competition testing here in Kenya is somewhat easy to get around compared to certain other countries. So, of course, us as athletes, we always get tested around Comrades. So both before and after Comrades, we get doping tested. That's in competition testing. But the problem with in-competition testing is you can expect it. And there are certain things that you can take that will make you stronger as an athlete, that will help you train better and recover faster. And then, you know, like 30 days before the race, the doctor tells you tells the athlete, now stop taking this. So it won't show up in your test, or it won't show up on your in-competition test. And this is the issue, of course, because many athletes here are unknown, so they are not in the system. Then suddenly they run a very fast marathon, like if, for instance, you saw with the lady who ran like Ruth Chepngetich, who ran 209. I mean, she was a very good athlete, but she was a 2:15, 2:16 runner, and then suddenly she runs 2:09. And probably she wasn't tested out of competition that much, and suddenly she is. So I already knew at the time, you know, like there's no way this is real. But at the same time, also she's never gonna get close to 209 again, because now she needs to stop using doping because she's in the system. But the problem with the system in Kenya is, you know, like even the people who work in the doping agency, they also have very little money. So if an athlete has a lot of money, he offers them a lot of money to get around the system, then many of them will take it. So there are a lot of loopholes in the system in Kenya, which is why I think that this should be handled internationally, so that all of the athletes who get tested out of competition get tested by the same agency and through the same rules.
It's a complex problem, but anyway, thank you for, you know, your thoughts. And as I say, I know that you're one of those runners who, strangely enough, don't appear to be motivated by money particularly. As long as you've got enough to live on and to give to the children in the orphanage that you used to work at. You've hinted at the word coach, and I haven't quite understood that. Do you have a personal coach, or is there just a coach there where you stay who looks after all the athletes, and you can ask him for advice or whatever, or do you yourself have your own specific coach?
Yeah, so after the World Championships in 2022, I got talking to a coach from Poland. Like I said, he was also coaching Guillaume and Alexander Sorokin. And I trained with him until Comrades the next year. And he definitely helped me a lot in that, because before the World Championships, I did not have, you know, like a very complete schedule, not a lot of variety. Suddenly I started doing speed work again. So this is also what allowed me to run relatively well, you know, like in my marathon debut. and in the end also, like going into Comrades. And up until that last month, when like all those hill workouts I made up myself, but up until that last month I was following his schedules. Then after Comrades 2023, I wasn't doing that much because I was having injury for a long time. And then when I came back already relatively soon, I went to Kenya, and in Kenya I just did my own thing, which is also why after Comrades 2024 I decided not to continue with him. But right now I've joined a group. Like before Comrades 2024, I did a few runs. Like usually the speed work I would do with Kipchoge's group, because I was also living at the time. I was living close to him. Then my ex roommate he joined a different group at some point, which is coached by Richard Lima, was the world champion over 5,000 meters in 2001. And he's the coach of my group, basically. Like, I'm still running with that group, and right now I also moved closer to them in my current room. So he's the coach of my group, but he doesn't make my schedules.
Okay, so these are runners. The runners you run with, they're all different distances from 5,000 meters to 100 Ks. Is that right? You all run together? I mean, when you go on your long things like that.
I mean, there are no ultra runners around here. Not in Kaptagat, as far as I'm aware, and also in Kenya in general, I think there are mostly just trail runners. And yeah, most athletes are not that inspired by ultra, I feel like, or at least they feel like it's too long, like their bodies would not be able to handle it. I mean, you have to go and see, of course, but of course there are a lot more options to make money in the marathon. So I think that is the main thing. But yeah, my group, all of the runners are basically half marathon or marathon runners, mostly. And that's also, like, when I joined the group, those are marathon specific workouts. And when I'm training specifically for Comrades, I adjust something. So for instance, like last year when I was preparing for Comrades, I was running with that group on Thursday and Saturday. So that was both for the long run of 30 and 40 kilometers, or the fartlek on Saturday. But on Tuesday I would do my Comrade specific long run. So like when I was getting closer to my race, I would do that was a day I would do 50 kilometers, 60 kilometers, and that 66-kilometer run. And then because I was recovering so fast, and usually 2 days later I would still join Coach Limo's group for the 30 or 40-kilometer run, which would also go faster, obviously, because you're running in a group, and it's shorter. And it's a different way of pushing the body. So I feel like both of them were very, very valuable. But now I do have the intention for the first time to really, like join his full program, like every day. I've only gotten back to Kaptagat yesterday, so these first 2 weeks, it's important not to overdo it and basically do my own thing. I'll do some speed work, but won't push it too hard. But probably from like the second half of this month or beginning of next month, I will probably join this group, like daily, even for the easy runs and the hill work and things like this.
Okay, you mentioned Alexander Sorokin, so I'm aware that we're drawing to the end of our time. That extraordinary 100K race that we've just seen, the sub 6. What are your views on it? And also, I've heard that all the three podium runners, our own Sibusiso, who was first, and Mark Lawrence, I think his name is, from the USA, was second, and Sorokin, who was supposed to be the one who broke the 6-hour barrier, was third. All three of them have said they're coming to Comrades. What is your view on that?
I mean, that last information is new to me, but I definitely welcome it. Like I always feel like I welcome more competition, but when I'm training for Comrades, I'm training for myself, and I'm just training to be better than the year before. And I feel like until this point, I've accomplished that every year. Also going into Comrades this year, like I said, I was in the best shape of my life. Then like I got food poisoning 2 days before, and I wasn't 100% starting, although I definitely ran a good race. But yeah, I always feel like I should not focus so much on my competition as I should focus on just getting the maximum out of like every day of training here in Kenya, because it is a privilege. And so yeah, I welcome that. As for the 100K world record attempt, or the sub 6, of course I admire it very much, what those runners have accomplished. At the same time, I feel like it is kind of a shame that it was not an official 100K world record attempt, because I think that 2 years ago, when me and Alexander Sorokin were running there in Vilnius, we already showed that it's possible to run a sub-6 legally. It was just a shitty course. But I feel like, like based on this, Sorokin running 6:05, me running sub-6 pace until 72 kilometers, and now, like having improved so much in the last 2 years, in the last 2 years, I mean, that shows that it's possible to run sub-6 legally. So why would you organize an event that is not under World Athletics rules? I felt like that wasn't necessary in this case. Like I get why they did it initially back in 2017 with the Nike attempt in Monza for the sub-2 and everything, and this was kind of supposed to emulate that. But I don't think it was necessary in this case. So that is kind of a shame, because now, like there are going to be two different sub-6s at some point. There's going to be the first one, and there's going to be the legal one. And I don't stand 100% behind that.
Yeah, you're right. It's amazing that they did it, and I'm going to compliment you here, Piet. But I think you could do it, as you say, in a legal race with legal running shoes in a race that's not paced and without a lead car that's protecting you and that sort of thing. I'm sure you could do it. It's frightening. Was it below 335 a kilometer per 100 Ks? But if you get a faster, flat enough course, it's more than possible. Piet, I think, we used up a lot of your time. I know you're an hour ahead of us in Kenya, and I know you're running calls tomorrow, but thank you so much. Thank you, for agreeing to this. It's an honor and a privilege to chat to you as a fellow winner, but as a great comrade. I can see already that your heart is in the right place, that your spirit is in the right place. You're not driven necessarily by some of the motivations that some people are, and I think that we've learned a lot more about you, and I can tell you from the people who have probably been listening tonight, you've probably got a whole bunch more, legions of fans who will be supporting you in next year's race. That's all I can say. You're a truly great comrade already. But just to tease you, great comrades winners have to win in both directions. But thank you, Piet.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the goal for 2027.
I have absolutely no doubt that we have not seen the last of you on the top step of the podium at Comrades. I have absolutely no doubt about that at all, and look forward to seeing you in South Africa quite soon. So stay in touch, and definitely the Bruce Fordyce after party. You're an honorary guest there next year. So thank you very much.
I'll be there. Thank you so much for the invitation. I enjoyed it.
Thank you for the wonderful chat and wonderful insights we've had tonight. Thanks, Piet.
Thank you.
Run well.
Bye.
Just remember to keep online here. Sorry, I'll go off, but just don't switch your laptops off.
Just stay online for 1 minute because it's got to download. Thanks, Piet. That was great. I hope I didn't ask any terrible questions or anything.
No. It's I definitely enjoyed it.
It was fantastic. It was really fantastic. It was great.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'm glad it worked out in the end.
Yeah, well, it was actually my fault.
She was trying to blame it on Kenya and the useless connections there, was it you? Because it just suddenly worked.
No, because it was a setting from the back end. Yeah.
And look, we had a few moments when the connection wobbled a bit, but it was perfect.
Yeah, I need to check here some settings on your side, on your laptop, but I'll do that for next year.
I'm sure we're going to get great feedback. You're going to be famous.
There was 680 people watching on Facebook.
Oh, wow.
A lot of people.
Awesome.
Were there questions?
I mean, it's always a shame if you talk too much, of course, then it's difficult to have time to respond to all the questions.
Yeah, you see, the problem is, and also I couldn't even see the questions coming through because I didn't have my glasses on. And the problem is people ask, and it doesn't, and when the question